When a prominent CEO is gunned down in the streets of New York City, the public reaction is supposed to be unanimous. There should be shock. There should be horror. There should be a collective demand for swift and absolute justice. But in December of 2024, when the CEO of UnitedHealthcare was assassinated in cold blood outside a Manhattan hotel, something deeply disturbing happened. The internet didn't mourn. It made memes. Across social media, millions of Americans, people whose loved ones died after their insurance claims were denied, people drowning in medical debt, watched the footage of the fleeing gunman, and they didn't see a murderer. They saw a dark, twisted vigilante. They called him a folk hero. They compared him to Robin Hood. This is the terrifying reality of the Luigi Mangione case. It is the story of a 27-year-old tech worker from an affluent background who allegedly picked up a ghost gun, attached a silencer, and declared war on the American healthcare system. But as we head into the explosive 2026 trials, the narrative is mutating. The digital folk hero is sitting in a concrete cell, and his high-priced legal team is currently executing a brilliant, aggressive strategy to suppress the murder weapon, hide his written manifesto, and beat the federal death penalty. The trial of Luigi Mangione is no longer just about the death of one executive. It is a referendum on a broken system, corporate greed, and the dangerous line between collective anger and premeditated murder. This is the anatomy of the most controversial assassination in modern American history. December 4, 2024. The air in Midtown Manhattan was freezing. Brian Thompson, the 50-year-old CEO of UnitedHealthcare, was walking toward the New York Hilton. He was in town for an annual investor conference. He was the head of a company that raked in hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue, a titan of the American medical industrial complex. At 6:46 a.m., a man stepped out from the shadows. He was wearing a light-colored jacket, a black face mask, and a gray backpack. He didn't say a word. He raised a 9mm pistol equipped with a sound suppressor, a silencer, and opened fire. The execution was chillingly methodical, but it was not flawless. Security camera footage, which would later be leaked and analyzed frame by frame by millions of internet sleuths, showed the gun jamming. An amateur would have panicked. An amateur would have run. But the masked gunman remained entirely calm. He racked the slide. He cleared the malfunction. He aimed, and he fired again. Brian Thompson collapsed to the pavement. With his target eliminated, the gunman turned and fled. He hopped onto a city bike, pedaling through the morning traffic, disappearing into the labyrinth of Central Park. The NYPD, the FBI, and federal task forces descended on Manhattan. They locked down transit hubs. They pulled thousands of hours of CCTV footage. They found the discarded e-bike. They tracked his movements into the subway system, where he was recorded brazenly changing his clothes to evade the dragnet. And then, he vanished. For 5 days, the greatest city in the world was paralyzed by a phantom. The media dubbed him the Ghost. How did a lone gunman execute a billionaire-tier CEO in one of the most heavily surveilled grids on the planet and simply evaporate? Conspiracy theories exploded. The internet speculated that it was a professional hit, ordered by a rival corporation, or a cartel, or a foreign intelligence agency. The execution was too cold, too calculated. But the truth was far stranger. The Phantom wasn't a cartel hitman. He was an Ivy League-educated data engineer with a history of chronic back pain and a burning hatred for the insurance industry. When you commit a high-profile assassination, your worst enemy isn't the FBI. It is the banality of everyday life. You still have to eat. You still have to sleep. On December 9, 2024, 5 days after the shooting, a young man walked into a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, roughly 250 miles away from the crime scene. He ordered food. But something about him caught the eye of a sharp, vigilant local. The man matched the blurry, heavily circulated photos from the NYPD dragnet. The police were quietly called. When Altoona police officers approached the booth, the suspect didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't try to run. Instead, he looked at the officers and, in a bizarrely polite, almost corporate tone, said, "I apologize for looking suspicious." They asked for his identification. He handed them a fake New Jersey ID. But when the officers searched his gray backpack, the polite facade crumbled. Inside the bag, they found a 3D printed ghost gun. They found a suppressor. And most damning of all, they found a handwritten notebook. The man in the booth was 27-year-old Luigi Mangione. He was immediately taken into custody. And when the contents of that notebook were leaked to the press, the story transformed from a true crime manhunt into a national psychological crisis. The notebook was a manifesto. It was filled with rambling, furious passages directed at the executives of the American healthcare industry. He wrote about the systemic cruelty of denying coverage to sick people to pad corporate profit margins. In one chilling passage, he explicitly used the word whack in reference to targeting a health insurance executive. Luigi Mangione had weaponized the collective trauma of the American public. UnitedHealthcare, like many major insurers, utilizes a business model heavily reliant on prior authorizations and algorithmic claim denials. To the corporate board, these are cost-saving efficiencies. To the mother whose child is denied cancer treatment, or the father buried under a mountain of medical debt, it is perceived as institutionalized murder. Mangione's notebook tapped into a deep, agonizing, bipartisan rage. When the public learned of his motives, a terrifying shift occurred. The internet began to defend him. TikTok and X were flooded with videos calling him a hero. People shared stories of their own bankruptcies caused by medical bills. They argued that if a corporation can legally let people die by denying them life-saving care, then Mangione was simply returning fire. It was a staggering societal red flag. Millions of Americans were so broken, so exhausted, and so completely alienated by the healthcare system that they were willing to romanticize a man who shot a father of two in the back. But romanticizing a killer on the internet does not hold up in a court of law. Fast forward to today, March 2026. Luigi Mangione is sitting in a cell, and the legal battlefield surrounding him is entirely unprecedented. This isn't a simple murder trial. It is a dual-track legal war. Mangione is facing charges at both the state level in Manhattan and at the federal level. And right now, his high-powered defense team is executing a ruthless, calculated strategy that could completely derail the prosecution. The trials are scheduled for the summer and fall of 2026. Mangione's lawyers have filed aggressive suppression motions. They are arguing that the initial search of his backpack at that Altoona McDonald's was constitutionally tainted. They are fighting tooth and nail to have the ghost gun, the silencer, and the handwritten manifesto completely thrown out of court. If they succeed in suppressing the notebook, the prosecution loses its motive. If they suppress the gun, they lose the physical link to the murder. And they have already scored a massive, controversial victory. In a shocking development in early 2026, the judge presiding over the federal case made a critical ruling regarding the death penalty. The federal death penalty is officially off the table. Luigi Mangione will not face lethal injection. The defense is also gearing up for a massive double jeopardy fight. As the June state trial approaches, the courtroom will not just be trying Luigi Mangione, it will be trying the entire American healthcare industry. The case of Luigi Mangione forces us to look into a very dark mirror. The frustration, the anger, and the heartbreak caused by the American healthcare system are entirely valid. But Brian Thompson was a CEO. He was also a husband. He was a father to 2 children. He was gunned down on a freezing sidewalk, not by a hero, but by a 27-year-old man who decided to play God. As the 2026 trials begin, the internet will continue to debate whether Luigi Mangione is a vigilante or a monster. But the undeniable truth is this: a broken system does not justify cold-blooded murder. If we allow the brutality of our institutions to turn us into a society that cheers for assassins, then the system hasn't just failed us. It has destroyed us. Case closed.